Hey, and welcome to Her Holistic Home. Glad you're here. Let's dig into some of our choices for 6th grade curriculum. So this year, I'm actually going back a little bit to some of the staples that I've kind of loved, and I'm also trying out some new things. So if you've seen my video on 5th grade curriculum, you will see a little bit of a change from some of the things we've used in previous years. So if you know me, you know I tend to try to use the classical method of education, mainly because it just works for us. I have tried and looked into Charlotte Mason type styles, and it just really isn't the way that works for my homeschool family. So we mix kind of a little bit of traditional, a little bit of kind of eclectic, mostly classical type method homeschooling. So let's dig into what we were using this year. So I have always loved, and I will always continue to talk about, the literature guides for Memoria Press. I love these guides. I'm using them right now for my 1st grader and will continue for my 2nd. And that is no different for my upcoming 6th grader. Now, I do not buy the ones that come with their kit. I am not one to buy the entire Memoria Press 6th grade kit, mainly because there are so many things that we don't use, i.e. their math, some of their geography, things like that. And a lot of their Latin-based curriculum, we don't do the Latin. So, and I know that is a big deviation from the classical method that we don't do Latin, but I have reasons for it, which I think I've explained in prior videos. So she chose Anne of Green Gables, which is a little bit of an upper level book. She's still finishing up The Hobbit this year. We're going very slowly through it because it was above her level last year, but she really wanted to read it. So I said, hey, let's do it. And so we're going slowly through that, and that will kind of just blend into this next year. And then she also chose Heidi. Now, Heidi was, I think, a 4th or 5th grade read, but it can go up until 6th grade. So we decided to give her a little bit of a lighter read as well. That way she has some harder and she has some easier. I don't like to give a lot of really hard books or a lot of really easy books. I kind of like to mix and match. I feel like that really helps her with her workload and everything else that goes on. So we are doing the Memoria Press literature guides. Memoria Press this year came out with their traditional spelling for 6th grade. So last year when we did 5th, I don't know if they've updated their 5th grade and if they have a traditional spelling for 5th grade now. I used kind of like an outsourced third-party type of spelling, and we did it. It wasn't great. We didn't love it. I was happy to see that they are bringing back, or they're updating their spelling throughout the years. So this is their 6th grade spelling. I really love it. I love how everything is presented, and I really love the usability of the words that are in their spelling curriculum. They're difficult words, but some of them are words I feel like they're really going to come across in everyday language. I really do love the spelling curriculum. Glad that now they have made it for 6th grade. And I don't know what they've done for 7th, or if they're building one for 7th grade. I haven't looked that far, but we are doing their spelling again. So that's exciting. And I will say that at some point we will drop spelling. And at some point, you know, you do drop spelling. You don't take spelling through high school, kind of just pivots. 6th grade though, they did have it. So we decided we'll continue with doing spelling. And we really also focus, I will say one of the things we focus on, and I think is really important in any spelling curriculum, is that you are integrating spelling, but also with vocabulary. So how do you use this word? So we try to use this so it's kind of like a supplement to like, hey, how are we using this? How are we using these words? So one of the things I love, and is sometimes they'll have things like a crossword puzzle. So you are matching up the word with its definition to help you kind of understand where, you know, the word comes from, what it means. And sometimes they include a little Latin root if it has, you know, a Latin root to it. Obviously that's that classical piece coming in. So we are now pivoting. So for 2 years, the last 2 years, Noelle has done Greek through Memoria Press. I think their Latin and Greek curriculums are amazing. If your child is wanting to learn Latin or Greek, I think that's definitely the way to go. We did their elementary Greek 1 and their elementary Greek 2. Now they do have an elementary Greek 3. However, you can do elementary Greek 3, or you can just go into first form Greek. And so for us, my daughter is very good in languages. So she picks them up really well. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for every 6th grader or for everybody who's kind of going into languages. But for example, so when we did Latin, Prima Latina was the first year. It was supposed to be 1 year. The second year, you were supposed to break Latin into 2 years. She did it all in 1 year, and she had learned the words and did just fine. Elementary Greek, she had no problem, even though we started it a year earlier than recommended, and she did really well. Elementary Greek 2, she's had no problems. And so I really feel confident that we will probably do fine in first form Greek. But But at the same time, because this is something that usually is started in around 7th grade, I won't have a problem if for some reason it does take us a little bit longer to get through it. It will be something we will just continue on in 7th grade. Now, if she busts right through it, then we'll move on. So I didn't bring all the workbooks here to show you. There's so many books that come with this first form Greek. So you have your student text here, which is going to kind of have the lesson in it. And then you have your student workbook, which I'm telling you, it's pretty hefty. So for me, again, if it becomes too much during the day for her to do, we will split it up and we will make this a 2-year program, because it is literally 2 days worth of, declining words, conjugating words. And to be truthfully honest, I don't know Greek very well. So she kind of is on her own with that, which is something that I will say that I love about Memoria Press, is that I have found that their language programs are very independent in that the child can really learn them and the parent can kind of follow along, but there's not a ton of parent involvement needed because, to be truthfully honest, while I'm teaching 2 other kids, I don't have time to be keeping up with first form Greek. They do have online classes. We really haven't delved into those, but we might at some point. This is the next thing we are going to do. So for writing, this is where we are taking the biggest shift and the biggest pivot, and maybe I should do a whole separate video on this, but we are switching away from IEW. So I know a lot of people love IEW, and I will say I love IEW as well. However, for me, it has been a little bit stifling for my daughter. I think the first year was really great. And even the second year was okay, but I will say that we kind of stopped around week 20 and just didn't finish out the year with writing, because what I found was the more rules we added on, the more awkward her paragraphs started to sound, because she was trying to fit in. If you know anything about IEW, there's a list of things that you need to incorporate into every single paragraph. There's a list of banned words as well, which I love the idea of the banned words, because they push the kids to use things other than like say or said or good or bad. And I think that's really great. But they also push them to use a because clause and a who which clause and a very short sentence and an ly adverb at the beginning of a sentence. And by the time you are putting all of these in one paragraph, these paragraphs were sounding very awkward. She was trying to shove because clauses in where they didn't really fit and they weren't really working. Who which clauses were popping up and they were sounding really odd and weird. And so for me, I was going, this isn't working for us. I love the tools. I love learning about those tools and then being able to use them when you want, but not having to use them if they don't work in the paragraph or in the sentence that whatever you're trying to convey. So we have decided to go back to Memoria Press's classical composition. Now, we never did it, so we are a little bit behind in classical composition, and therefore we are going to be doing their classical composition 1 and 2 in the same year due to her grade level. Now, the great thing is Memoria Press has a guide on how to do both of these in the same year. And then she can move into the next one next year and she won't be that far behind. So if I was to do this again, what I would do is I would do IEW. I think IEW was great for 1 year. The structure and style for 1 year. Learn the tools, learn all these different great pieces of writing, and then incorporate them as you write. This, I think, is going to allow, from what I've read, from what I've researched, now I may eat my words and next year I may hate it. But from what I've read, it seems like it's going to allow her to have a little bit more freedom in her writing. And that's what I think she really needs. Hand in hand with that, we are pivoting off of Fix-It grammar. And let me just tell you, if you do IEW, I think you need to do Fix-It grammar. And the reason why is because IEW is very long, especially if you do the structure and style DVDs that are very long. You really need something that's quick and easy for grammar. Otherwise, you're going to be spending forever doing school. So this year, we are doing the Well-Trained Mind grammar program. And they recommend starting this in 5th or 6th grade. And this can go all the way up through high school, which is really nice. And what's great is that you don't have to get through this whole book in a year. You can just continue on with it. All the methods are taught, from what I read, there's YouTube videos on this from the Well-Trained Mind. There's 4 different colors of this book, but they all teach the same thing. They just give different examples and different things to work through. So if this takes her 2 years, that's okay. And there's other books that go along with this. There's some grammar guides, some sentence structure stuff, but we are going to be doing this Well-Trained Mind grammar versus Fix-It grammar this year, this is a very classical curriculum. So in the kind of classical realm, they do recommend teaching logic. And now I really want my kids to obviously learn logic. So there's a couple things we're doing this year. 1, we're going to be probably getting involved in speech and debate. 2, Memoria Press's logic, they have a logic curriculum as part of like their curriculum packages. However, they don't start until I think 8th grade. Don't quote me on that, but it's a little bit farther from here. So we couldn't really start their logic curriculum, but I wanted to kind of start introducing the ideas of logic. And so I bought this book, The Fallacy Detective. I looked at several different logic books that were recommended, even by like the Well-Trained Mind book, and some of them tended to be very, I would say, liberal in their ideology or trying to push a specific agenda. And I really didn't want that in the logic book that we're going to kind of use. And this one was recommended. I saw some really good recommendations for this one by Christian authors that I highly respect. And so this was the one that we decided to go with. It looks fun. It looks kind of easy, like something that she's going to actually want to do. But we also bought the Tuttle Twins book on logical fallacies as well. So we may couple that in, let her read that for fun if she wants to. If not, we're going to stick with that kind of for logic. Okay, so now let's talk about history. History is a sore point for me. I really have not liked any history curriculum that we have used. I have tried Mystery of History several times, and I love the concept of it. It is a lot of reading, though. But we got through the medieval period of history with Mystery of History. And so now we are kind of moving on to the Renaissance era. Now, the Renaissance era also kind of falls and blends into, early America time period. And so what we are planning on doing is reading through just the story of the world, like from medieval, late medieval, early Renaissance kind of period book. But then, and those lessons are very easy. They're very short, kind of just reading through those, maybe adding characters to a timeline because I have a timeline already. We have printable characters for like the whole timeline that we can just kind of print out whatever we need. But I gave my daughter the choice of doing American history again or doing like kind of like a government class. So she actually chose this government class. And so this is the Notgrass government civics type course. She really wanted to learn about this, and so I was like, let's do it. So this is kind of a break in that I know like the classical method, you kind of go from ancients to modern, ancients to modern, ancients to modern. And so we kind of are mixing a little bit of like where the world is through the story of the world, like during the creation of our country and going through that, but also going to be intermixing like this. And I also have some, I think, Homeschool in the Woods, Renaissance type lap book stuff. So we'll do that kind of as we go as well and kind of just intermixing. And this may take us 2 years. This is part 1. There's 2 parts. So that's the one thing about this that's a little bit crazy with Notgrass is there is a lot of reading, a lot of material. But again, you break it up, you do the best you can, and if you have to make it split over 2 years, then you make it split over 2 years. The one thing that I really liked, and this is something that's very important, I will say, with the classical method of education, is making sure your kids are reading source texts and not just reading this. And so that's kind of how I felt with Mystery of History is I did feel like they reference source text that you can go to the library and you can get and things like that. But they didn't include them. It was mostly their textbook. So for this, what I loved is I have this textbook, but we also have this book here called the Citizen's Handbook. And what is in this is a lot of like source text, like letters from people and poems that are original poems. And some of these are reprints of like actual excerpts from books and things like that. All that kind of stuff that's in here. So my kids are reading the actual things that happened, not just about them, they're actually reading them. So that's what I really like about this. I will say this thing, this curriculum also comes with a lot of like read alouds and novels and things, but because we're already doing our own reading that we want to do in our reading curriculum, I don't buy those because it becomes an overload. But if you really wanted, like your kid, you're not doing literature or something, or you wanted to create your own literature guide, you could use the books that come with this and just let them read those as part of their literature and kind of do it all in one. We just don't. And so then this is the student workbook. I really like this. So this has lots of fun games, crossword puzzles, fill in the blank, mazes, the fun things that like my kid likes to do these. If your kid's like, oh, I hate doing that, then don't buy that. And then we also have these lesson reviews. The lesson review is going to be more like, here's your questions of what you learned. So these are going to be a little bit more boring, but they're not that long if you actually look at them. Like this is lesson 72. There's like 5 questions there. That should not take that long. What president visited South Korea in 1960? Write the name. Like, not that difficult, you know? And actually, if your kid wanted to memorize those things, these would be great prompts for like putting on flashcards or something to that effect. Math, we are going back to Abeka. We're going back to Abeka. So let's talk about math. Last year, if you listened to my video, we went to the Good and the Beautiful Math. Now, I don't have anything bad to say about the Good and the Beautiful Math. I know there's a lot of videos out about, you know, it being a Mormon curriculum. And to be truthfully honest, did I feel like there was a Mormon influence on the math curriculum for the Good and the Beautiful? No, I did not. We did not use their language arts. We used their math. Here's what I did and didn't like about it. I did like that there was a little video that kind of taught the lesson. I think my daughter really loved that. Anytime they can get screen time, they're excited. But I did not like their teacher's guide. Their teacher's guide for the answer key was literally just the answers. So there was a couple times that I had to sit there, if she missed it, and work out how to do it. I had to reduce some fractions, multiply some fractions out, and figure it out, which I can do. I went to college, I aced college algebra, but it's been a hot minute, you know, since I've done like, you know, least common multiple, greatest common factor. You know what I'm saying? So for me, for them to not kind of spell it out, yes, I can work through it, but when I'm sitting there grading and I just want to be able to be like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it, I sometimes don't want to take that time to be like, okay, let me figure it out first. And now let me teach it to you. If it would just be there, I'd go, okay, right, that's how you do it. And then I could teach it to her. I know that Abeka does that because I've used Abeka and they do that even with their like early beginning math. So now I have seen in the Good and the Beautiful, I hopped a little bit and I think it's their 7th grade math where their teacher, their answer guide tends to start to really break out the problems. But I just really didn't feel like going another year where it just wasn't open and go for me. Also, I felt like there was a lot of busy work in the Good and the Beautiful, a lot of problems, a lot of time. It took her a lot of time to get through math, even though she's pretty quick at her math facts. So there was just a lot of really, I would say, problems that took a lot of time to do. And so we're going back to Abeka. The reason I had gone away from Abeka last year was because they were going to update their 5th grade curriculum and they were not going to release it until like, I think it was late August or September. We start in July and I just could not wait for that. And I didn't want to buy the old version knowing it was just about to be outdated. So I contacted Abeka and I was like, this is your 6th grade. When are you updating it? And they were like, we're not updating it this year. Now, hopefully they didn't lie to me. But I bought it. So I said, okay, well then we're going to buy it. If you're not updating 6th grade, and I asked, when are you going to update it? And they said, well, we don't know in the foreseeable future. Now, it might be next year, and that would be a bummer because then I'll have to buy it all over again for my younger ones. But hopefully that's not the case. We're just going to go ahead with 6th grade Abeka. Okay, so let's talk about Bible. Bible, there is a really gaping hole I have found when it comes to Bible curriculum for middle schoolers. Now, if you had done Memoria Press all the way up and you just done their Bible, then you would just be in Christian studies and you just keep doing it. We did not do the Christian studies through Memoria Press. I didn't feel like I felt like they made the Bible kind of cut and dry, historical, textbook-y, learn about it, but not apply it to your life. And I want Bible to kind of incorporate, yes, the historical, but also let's also apply it to our life kind of aspect. And so it was in 3rd and 4th grade that we did the Apologia, Old Testament and New Testament. And so then 5th grade, last year, I talked about, we did the elementary apologetics through master books. But now in 6th grade, we're kind of like, because Answers in Genesis has an amazing, and I'm going to get to it in my next video on 2nd grade curriculum, an amazing Bible curriculum. However, it only goes up to 5th grade right now. So for us, we're in 6th grade and we just really needed to figure out like what we're going to do for Bible. So this became a little bit of a problem. What we have decided to do is to hop into Israel Wayne's Foundations in Faith. Now, this curriculum, when you open it up, it says it is a 1-year course designed for grades 7th through 12th. So this is basically upper middle school and high school. And I think it really is designed more for high school. However, I think my daughter will probably be able to handle this. Again, you have to judge for yourself, your own child. And if this takes us 2 years to get through, then we're okay with that. We're okay letting this be 6th and 7th grade. That's okay. So the lessons are not very long, to be honest. There's a what is doctrine, what is theology, and then there's an activity kind of page to go with it. And then there's day 2, and there's some verses and copying verses and like reading. But this does not seem to me very complex for my daughter, being at where she is in her faith and kind of in her Bible learning. But again, you'll have to judge it kind of for yourself. And I hope to go along with her in this. So if she has any questions, I'm there. We can discuss these things. And there is another book that kind of goes along with it called Great for God. So there'll be some reading that's incorporated. But I'm really excited for her to do this for her Bible curriculum. And last but not least, what are we doing for science? Science and history have been my ones that I delay on so much. Like, okay, if we're going to get through everything, we're going to get through math, language arts, all those things, Bible, but we leave history and science for the end. And the funny thing is that I love science. I love it. And I've loved Apologia, but to be truthfully honest, and I love Nature's Workshop for partnering kind of in creating these the packets of like the stuff you need for all the experiments for each chapter. That is a must have if you're going to do Apologia in my mind. However, we were not really interested in any of the zoology kind of Apologia sciences this year. And so we started talking about different science curriculum, what we wanted to do. And because we are getting ready to kind of build on our land, we have our land, we want a homestead, we decided this year would be the perfect year to do the Homestead Science curriculum. So you may have seen this at a homeschool convention. This is kind of more the high school book. And so like as a parent, I'm probably going to read through this myself and we'll dig in where we want to dig in from the high school level. Now this one will be Noelle's. It says Little Learners Homestead Science. But if you look at the grade levels that are kind of represented, they say that this is more high school and this is more elementary school, middle school. So we'll probably do a mix of both. Again, this is probably going to be Juliet's and Noelle's. There's kind of a mix because I have all three kind of age groups except for high school kind of in here. So we're going to do kind of what we want to do from this and then leave the rest. So we're excited about using this curriculum. I bought the whole family package. So it has like the little elementary ABCs, homesteading, and then it has this, and then it has also this high school one, which again, Noelle might really dig into this even though she's in middle school because it doesn't seem necessarily beyond her age level or reading level or anything like that. So, so this is what we're doing for science. So that was a lot. I feel like already like we are going to be doing a lot this next year, but I'm also really excited for the curriculum that we chose and how we're kind of going to go forward and move forward with these things that we've chosen. As I said, I went back to a lot more Memoria Press than in prior years, bringing back their composition, bringing back their spelling, and then going back also to Abeka. And then still staying with the classical method when it comes to grammar, not doing Memoria Press's grammar. And the reason why is there. So let me just clarify why we're not doing the Memoria Press's grammar. Memoria Press integrates their grammar very heavily with their Latin program. And since we're not doing their Latin program, we're doing their Greek program, I felt like it was important to get a full picture of grammar somewhere else. And so that's why we're doing the Well-Trained Mind grammar, because it is a full, robust classical grammar program, and it will continue all the way through high school. So it's really easy for us to just keep going with that same grammar curriculum. I hope this was helpful for you in kind of picking out what you want to do for your kid. If there's any questions that you have about this curriculum, or if you have any questions about how my 5th grade curriculum was or why we changed or anything like that, feel free to leave me a comment below, or you can message me through any of my social media channels, and I'll see you next time.